guys, so a question I get asked often is, what are some good comping rhythms I can use to practice comping? So I thought in this video I'd give a few suggestions and ideas. So comping is short for accompanying or complementing, and it's done by an instrument that can play harmony, like piano or guitar, in the rhythm section of a band. It involves playing the chord progression of a song using a varied rhythm. So instead of just playing the chord on beat 1 of every bar and holding it, you kind of chop at the chords in a quasi-random manner to create some rhythmic variety in your playing. Now I say quasi-random because it's not really completely random. There are a few widely used rhythms and ideas that are used in comping. But first, let's discuss some of our options. So firstly, you could comp with the melody. So every time a melody note is played, you could play the chord. Or alternately, you could play between the melody, so in the pauses or the rests in between the phrases of the melody. Now to start practicing, we're going to first use 1-bar patterns, then we're going to develop that into 2-bar patterns. But ultimately, you don't want to play a repeating pattern at all. You want each bar to be somewhat unique in terms of the rhythm you inject into the chord progression. But that obviously takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of time. So the key idea here is that we want to combine playing chords on and off the beat to create a little bit of a syncopated feeling. Now, of course, playing chords just on the beat can be done, but it starts to get a little bit boring after a while and begins to sound more like a Beatles song rather than a jazz song. And playing only off the beat can also be done, but it begins to sound a bit more like a reggae song rather than a jazz song. So really, we want to be able to mix both on and off the beat rhythms. Now to begin with, I would start with the following rhythms and just learn to play them in your left hand just by themselves with no melody or improvisation or anything like that first. So this first pattern is just playing a single 8th note off the beat. So for example, playing on the 1 and beat. So 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4. So just playing a single 8th note on an off beat on that 1 and, moving through the chord progression of the song. And then of course we could move that single 8th note to different positions in the bar, making sure that it always falls on an off beat, so on an and, in between 2 of those beats. So we could move it to the 2 and, to the 3 and, or to the 4 and. And so practice your chord progression using each one of those patterns. Now the next pattern, we're going to play 2 8th notes on the 1 and then the 1 and, so immediately after each other. So 1 and 2, 3, 4, 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 and so on. And again, you could take that same little rhythm and move it to the other beats of the bar. So starting on the 2 and hitting the 2 and, 3, 3 and then 4, 4 and. And again, so take your chord progression and play all the chords through the entire song using each one of those rhythms. The next one is going to be very similar, but we're going to hit the 1 and then the 2 and. So it's going to sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 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 and so on. And again, you can take that pattern and move it to the other beats of the bar so that you hit 2 3 and, 3 4 and 4 1 and. Next, again, very similar pattern, only 2 eighth notes, but we're going to be hitting the 1 and the 3 and. So, 1 2 3 and 4, 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 and so on. And similarly, you take that same pattern and you move it forward 1 beat, so that you can have a 2 4 and pattern, 3 1 and pattern, and 4 2 and pattern. And finally, the last 1 bar pattern we're going to look at is a 1 4 and pattern. So it sounds like this. 1 2 3 4 and 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 1. And once again, we can take that same pattern and move it up a beat to create a 2 1 and pattern, 3 2 and pattern, and 4 3 and pattern. And practice each one of those separately all the way through your chord progression. And if you are paying attention, you'll see that except for the first pattern that I showed you, which was just a single eighth note on an off beat, all our other patterns we're hitting an eighth note on the beat, and then another eighth note off the beat. First on the 1 and, then on the 2 and, then on the 3 and, then on the 4 and. And then we took that general rhythmic pattern and we moved it across so that we're starting on either the 2 or the 3 or the fourth beat of each bar instead of the 1 beat. So once you're comfortable playing those particular rhythms just in your left hand, then you want to take the song, or take a song that you're learning, and play the chords using one of these rhythms repeated all the way through the song. And do this while playing the melody in your right hand. So for example, you could use the 1 2 and pattern. Or similarly, the 1 3 and pattern. And then once you're comfortable with that, do the exact same patterns in your left hand, but improvise rather than play the melody in your right hand. Then pick a different rhythm and do it again. And then once you're comfortable playing the melody and improvising over each one of those comping rhythms, then you can pick 2 of those 1 bar patterns and combine them into a 2 bar pattern. Just make sure that the rhythms don't overlap. So for example, you could pick the 1 2 and then combine it with the 1 and pattern. So it would be 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and then again play the melody and improvise over that. Or similarly combine the 1 1 and with the 1 and 3. So it would go 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Or combine the 2 4 and with the 2 2 and. 1 2 3 4 and 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 and 1 2 3 4. And in fact, you can even combine 2 of these 1 bar patterns into another 1 bar pattern. Just again, make sure the rhythms don't overlap. So for example, combining the 1 1 and with the 2 and. So 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. And then you can take that rhythm and start moving that around the bar, so starting on different beats. Then, once you're comfortable doing all that, try mixing and matching these rhythms without repeating them every 1 or 2 or 4 bars, so that each bar has its own rhythm. And then try to create your own rhythm. And then, once you can do all of that, you've almost certainly mastered the basics of comping. And finally, I should just say that through this entire video, I have been just using plain, boring 7th chords to comp because this video is about comping rhythm rather than about chord voicings. But of course, in reality, you don't want to just stick to basic 7th chords. You want to start introducing some more interesting chord voicings into your comping, but still following these same rhythmic rules and patterns. But I have a whole series of videos on chord voicings, so you can go check that out if you're interested. Thanks guys, see ya.